What if you took Morning Brew's approach to newsletter writing and applied it to local news? That was the original idea behind 6am City, a company that launched its first newsletter in Greenville, South Carolina in 2016 and gradually expanded it into over a dozen cities. For most of its history, 6am City's approach was to hire a handful of editors in each city and then gradually build up an audience and advertiser base. But in the last year, it developed a playbook for using AI to launch newsletters in smaller, less populated areas, with the goal of eventually hiring human editors once those newsletters reach certain thresholds. In a recent interview, co-founder Ryan Heafy explained how these AI newsletters actually work, where they get their information, and what guardrails the company has put in place to ensure quality control. Hello, I'm Simon Owens, and this is The Business of Content, the show about how publishers create, distribute, and monetize their digital content. If you want to listen to an audio version of this interview, subscribe to The Business of Content wherever you get your podcast. Okay, let's jump into the interview. Hey, Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here, Simon.
So you are the co-founder of this company called 6am City. I think I've either interviewed you or your co-founder on this podcast or for my newsletter in the past, and it's been several years, and you've been up to a lot of new stuff since then, which is what I want to spend most of this interview talking about. But just to kind of get people up to speed for the few who don't know who you are, can you just like kind of when did you and your partner, whose also his name is Ryan, found 6am City? Can you just walk me through kind of that origin story and what the initial version of it was?
Yep. 6am City was founded in 2016 as a product innovation of my business partner's family company, Community Journals Publishing in Greenville, South Carolina. They had like a regular weekly newspaper, business product, lifestyle pub, but no digital presence. And at the time, that was when you had Morning Brew getting off the ground, The Hustle, the Charlotte Agenda, and there was a real opportunity to go, wow, you could take this local media company that's all print and hop into the newsletter space and maybe scale. And so at that time, we decided to enter. I came actually from the aerospace media background. I'm a process guy, which has a lot to do with how we are evolving with AI today. So you take some process, you take some legacy media mindset. We really kind of complemented each other, and I came on board to help their family business launch in the digital space. And so we took the approach really kind of following Ted Williams' guidelines with the Charlotte Agenda, and a 5-minute read, conversational in tone, local news and events in the cities that we serve. And we differentiated ourselves in our newsletter product by not covering politics, crime and punishment, and divisive topics. And that really gave us a larger total addressable market. It was a safe place for advertisers. We launched in Greenville. We pre-sold $500,000 of advertising to a lot of the local advertisers of the legacy print product. And then we started to scale. So we went 1 market, 2 markets, 7 markets, 21 markets, and today over 400 markets across the U.S. with over 2 million subscribers.
Wow.
So it's
400. So I'm guessing that's where the AI comes in, and we'll get to talking about that. But like to kind of get to the overall thesis of it is, like you mentioned, Morning Brew. It's kind of taking that Morning Brew kind of breezy summary type of thing and applying it to local. And because it's local, you can then, once you've created this system for how you could be in one city, you could start copying and pasting and basically create a playbook of where you could strategically move into more and more cities. So like so you said Charlotte, was Charlotte the first one, or what was the first?
Greenville, South Carolina was first. And then we started moving around the Southeast as a primary. It was driving distance. We thought we had to be physically in market at the time with a staff and an office and all those things. And that was the approach we took. And so we focused around the Southeast initially.
Yeah, and I don't know what it's like now, but like your model, at least the last time I talked to, is like every city you would move into, I think you would hire like 2 editors, and one of them was like, I think they would trade off back and forth, and one would be responsible for putting together the newsletter that day, and then the other person was just like basically almost like a community manager who was like looking at all the social media, taking news tips, people tagging, like you were doing like crowdsourcing and stuff like that, and kind of vacuuming up all this like amazing content that's coming out at the local level so that it could be centralized in the newsletter. So like even though a lot of this stuff was appearing elsewhere, this was like the central place where it was all kind of being aggregated. Is that kind of the
Yeah, that's
the
correct.
approach.
And today we've kind of, actually, in the very beginning, we had like a managing editor and 2 editors in every city. And over the years, we've kind of realized that it's almost better to empower a single editor in each market, where they have full kind of control and autonomy over making sure the product is fulfilled in a manner, and then centralizing the rest of the operations. And so we've kind of gotten ourselves to that, which is a more efficient process and product, and really like lets the local editors shine. So we've had some evolution, but it's really just let us kind of refine the product, and it's over 10 years. I mean, we've been in this for a lot longer than a lot of other folks, and really have put the processes in play and playbook to allow us to scale.
Yeah, and like and when you say playbook, like didn't you create like an actual physical playbook for that's just like every level of the operation of launching in a new city?
Yeah, it's actually, we pulled it out the other day. It's about like, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches tall with in actual printed versions. We were like going through and making sure that we had this thing. We would mail it, a copy of it, to every new editor that joined the company so they could read through. Eventually we moved into a platform called Trainual, which has been amazing, and helps us to get our staff onboarded and up to speed a lot quicker. But yeah, I mean, that training process, and the way that we bring staff on board now, and how we've kind of really refined that playbook over the years, has allowed us now to take advantage of technology to be way more efficient, because we've had it all built out. Like the explanation of everything that we do is documented. And so now you take someone with some tech background, you say, oh, wow, I can really optimize all these steps that you guys have in the process of manufacturing a newsletter. And then that's where the efficiencies have really come into play, and allowed us the opportunity to now really take a big leap forward.
So when like in those initial like several cities, what was kind of your decision-making process of when to move into a new city?
We we always, and still to this day, I would say we have 2 products today. We have our core product, which is that a newsletter that has, in a city, that has an editor and a salesperson and additional support resources in a market. We have about 18 or so of those markets. And then we have 400 of what we call seed markets. And so our core markets still grow and expand the way that they used to in the past, which says there's a few different traits. One is an advertiser, one is an audience, and one is an advocate. And so those 3 A's really define whether we go into a new market with full-time staff straight out the gate and get running. And typically that's fueled because we're in an area, and geographically there's another city that makes sense, and several of our advertisers are also in that city. So they come to the table, they become launch partners of ours in that new market. Maybe we acquire another smaller newsletter publication in a market, and we pick up 10, 20, 50,000 subscribers. That gets us going faster. Or maybe there's a local advocate. And so a lot of like economic development groups and stuff have been recruiting us to cities to come help launch. And that in those instances, they bring a lot of the advertisers to the table and help us expedite our growth process. That's how we always grow, when we go in with our core product and we have boots on the ground on day one. And that's still the case today. And so we were also targeting tier 2 cities. So historically, we wouldn't go into a New York or Atlanta or LA. We were really kind of focused around those mid-tier markets in the heart of America. And we found a lot of pride and place in those cities. And that was really the driver, because we knew the product would take well in those markets that were growing.
And when you moved into a new city, when you're not acquiring an already existing outlet, like how did you build initial awareness? Like, was it through like Facebook ads and stuff like that?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've gotten really good at meta lead ads. It comes with a cost. We've gotten really, really very good at acquiring subscribers for under $1, and really perfecting kind of the quality of that audience that you get in, identifying exactly who our target customer, our reader is. And we could go, and if we had capital backing the launch of a market, we would go deploy a good portion of that capital to build the audience right away. And we've tried every single acquisition tactic that you can think of over the years, but meta lead ads still has one of the best cohort analyses when it comes to retention of those subscribers for long periods of time. We know that we can make an investment up front. We pick up a large portion of subscribers, and so long as they stay after the third month, they're usually with us for 12 plus months. And that would be typically like 30 to 40% of the audience, depending on the city.
Yeah, and it's like I talk to so many publishers that are like, I know Facebook isn't cool, but it's still the number one way to acquire an audience and drive leads and stuff like that. And so it's just kind of still the only game in town. Like a lot of them just don't even, if their resources are limited, they're just going to put all of that in Facebook ads.
I think we always take it as the baseline. So if you can grow your audience with Facebook lead ads, and you know it's going to cost $1, and maybe your eCPL is like actually $2.50 or something, like it costs some amount of money to truly get the subscribers in the door. I compare every other acquisition method to that. So if I know I can go get a subscriber for $1, would I go to an event in a community and try to spend $5,000 on this happy hour, thinking that I'm going to get subscribers from it or raise my awareness? Well, if I don't convert that $5,000 event into 5,000 subscribers or $5,000 in advertising, then the ROI wasn't there. And so all these growth tactics, while there's lots of them and lots of different options, is truly the investment in your time, energy, and capital in those other channels better than Meta or something else. So I think just optimizing, and we kind of figured that out. We're trying a lot of net new things now today, too, as technology is evolving and giving us better pathways to maybe get any even cheaper.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the local news entrepreneurs I talk to, like, their way of acquiring audience is just original reporting, and so people will just naturally, organically share their stuff, and also people will come in through Google and stuff like that. But like, that's never been part of your business model, is to try to like do original interviews, go to city council meetings, stuff like that.
No, but I think so. We do have an original reported article in our core markets every single day. Those editors are writing content. Those newsletters are entirely produced by humans in those cities, and that content does actually an amazing job. And from an organic perspective, I think in many instances our organic growth is probably larger than other publications who talk about their organic growth. But because we have such larger audience size, we don't really talk about that as much because it's a smaller piece. And I think a lot of it just comes down to, is the publisher's intent to actually make money or just to provide good service to the market? There's lots of great content creators that don't necessarily have the capital or the business acumen to do the audience growth piece. And so they have these amazing newsletters, and they write for a small audience, highly engaged audience, but it's hard to monetize that. And so eventually a lot of those folks get themselves 1, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, and it becomes it's a passion of love. It's not a profit center for them, and they burn out.
What kind of original reporting are the editors doing?
Ours, they write stories about the community. So we cover lifestyle and events type content usually. So a lot of that comes to like local developments, festivals, big news topics that are impacting the community. Like we'll still cover like voting, but it's like about where to vote, or how you can get involved, or the things that are on the ballot this year, or what are the new restaurant openings that are coming up? What is the hospitality tax? Like, what does that mean for your community? We're not reporting on it from a lens that's sharing opinion, but it's more like the 101, like civics 101 a lot of times. Like, what does this mean? Like, what the hell is this? Like, I'm a CEO in a boardroom, but I hear about these topics in town all the time, but I might not understand what they actually mean. So we kind of just share a little bit more intentionally what those things are and what they mean. But again, we're really just participants in the community, and starting conversation around the stuff that's happening locally, helping people understand how they can spend their time, talent, and treasure in their communities. And so that usually lends itself to being around developments, restaurants, entertainment, type stuff.
How much are you like encouraging your editors to like go into the community, like going to a hot new restaurant or a festival or something like that?
We've we encourage them to go out into the community. There's also a work-life balance. A lot of that stuff is in the evenings, on the weekends and stuff. And so to the extent that they can, we've also started to use some technology to centralize social back more to the core business, which is where they were using that in the field more often. So the expectation is there that we want them to participate. However, we also understand the limitations with small staff to get out there and capture content that way. But getting out in the field is also a great way to get to know your community, to let yourself ask questions. What are you curious about? Wow, that new sign went up, that building, that whatever. But we also ask them to lean on social. There's tons of people creating UGC content in a market, and we are great curators of content. And so if you establish relationships in the community, a lot of the content comes to you, and you don't have to physically actually be out there. So you can maximize your creative side and how you package and deliver the content without having to go drive all over God's creation to go capture the content yourself, because other people will send it and feed it to you. And then you get to help elevate them too.
Yeah. And like, are you trying to train the community to like tag you or send you tips and stuff like that, like to come to you with stuff?
Yeah. If you looked at some of our more mature cities, if you look at the inbox, and comments and things that are sent to them, it's overwhelming. Inbound leads. Oftentimes our staff are getting information ahead of the local news site, like to traditional like broadcast and newspaper, messaging in, hey, did you know this? Did you see this? And the whole community is kind of like reporting for us, and then helping to elevate that stuff. And then we're also using tech to augment and do some looking around too, to kind of be a feeder for relevance and content for our editorial staff. And that's all helping to make them more dangerous and more effective and more creative in the content they produce. Is
that like a dashboard that's like bringing up tweets or something that are getting high local engagement or something?
Yeah. What was the Twitter feed or social feed that would do that for you and aggregate tweet?
Oh, Nuzzle, you mean?
Yeah, there's similar type things, but we're using it to surface content that's beyond social. Because like a lot of the businesses and stuff in a community are sharing their own content in their own ways on social or through their websites or whatever platforms they have. And if you can use technology to pay attention to that stuff, you can surface it for your editorial staff. And if you can surface it for your editorial staff and also deliver them the links to the sources, it lets them be a lot more dangerous in how they go take that content and actually write and package it and deliver it to the community. So if you can make them be a better, faster aggregator by leveraging technology, you really empower them to thrive with their creative side.
And how do you approach, like you're primarily advertising supported, right?
Correct, yep.
So how do you approach that? Like I talked to some of these companies and they kind of centralize staff, but then there's other people who are talking about like, being able to go to the local chamber of commerce meeting or like actually walk into a business establishment, like how much more powerful that is from sales. Like how do you approach it?
I would say things evolved post-COVID or through COVID in a lot of ways, where a lot of the people who are buying media aren't necessarily, they don't even care about having the in-person meeting. In some instances they do, but it has gotten a lot less important. In many instances, our salespeople are not physically in the same cities that they serve. They've established the relationships. They talk with their people all the time through text messages and phone calls and LinkedIn and email and all that fun stuff. But a lot of times their buyers that they work with are regional. And a lot of our advertisers are also regional, which is important. So if we work with a grocery chain or a financial institution or a healthcare system, oftentimes they span multiple cities that we operate in. And so the buyer that we're working with for advertising, they might be buying in Greenville, South Carolina, Charleston, Richmond, Virginia, Charlotte, but the buyer's in Atlanta. And so it doesn't matter. And that has to do a little bit with the size of the business. If we were in one city only, and had a smaller list size and our rates were smaller, we might be working more directly with local buyers where you'd want that in-person relationship all of the time. But we've taken and made a lot of our lower cost options self-serve. So people can go online and buy all of our inventory at lower affordable price points for local businesses without having to even work with somebody. And so we've kind of taken some of that barrier out that also allows us to generate a lot more revenue and better fulfill for local businesses, regional businesses, and national businesses.
And what kind of ads are you selling?
Typical custom headers in our newsletters. We sell our lead story very, very infrequently. We have secondary stories, mini articles, and articles, just primarily a difference in length and links, text ads, banner ads. We do have a little bit of a difference than a lot of newsletters. A lot of newsletters have like one primary sponsor for the day that has a logo at the top, maybe a secondary story, a banner ad, or some other stack of things that they get. By dissociating all of that and selling it all individualized, our total CPM for a newsletter is a lot higher. And on a local level, those rates are a lot higher because typically it's a flat rate buy versus a national thing, which could be even CPC based. So like there's just a massively different cost structure on a local level for advertising than there is in what most people are used to on a national level. So we can do much better, much more profitable city by city. And by having that full stack of inventory, an individual newsletter can generate, a lot of money. A example, we have newsletters that can do $1 million a year in revenue against 60,000 subscribers. So they're doing pretty well on a daily basis.
And do you have any self-service ad products, or is that 100%? Does everybody have to go through a human to place an ad?
Pretty much everything that you can do through a human, you can do self-serve. If you're buying bigger packages, there's better discounts and opportunities by working with our sales staff. So obviously we would lean and recommend people to go that way. But if you're buying a one-off mini article or a text ad or whatever, or a package of those, you can do all of that online in our own self-service portal that we created.
And what percentage of advertisers are actually using that portal? And what's the learning curve of teaching them? Because the reason people are really good at Facebook ads is because obviously Facebook is a huge company, and now tons of people have built up entire businesses on buying Facebook ads. The same thing with Google ads and stuff like that. And so what's that kind of learning curve, and how much are advertisers embracing it?
I would say we don't push it the way that we could. As a bigger priority for us. We do pretty well on our bigger core advertisers. It's more of it was created more for our team to not have to focus on so many advertisers versus as a primary driver of revenue for us. So we take bottom of funnel, or they're guaranteed, they're going to come through. They're always going to be $250, $500, $1,000 or whatever. They can all go right here. And so our sales team will reroute them to that platform. We do some passive marketing through our newsletters from time to time, but it's not something we've been pushing huge. Does it do tens of thousands of dollars a month in revenue? Yes, it does. It varies based off the time of year. In event season, it's much higher than other times, than maybe a January. But we also sell through their we also have event listings, job listings, home listings, things that are typically your historical classified things. And so they can buy all of that stuff self-service throughout the site. And collectively, it's material, but it's probably less than 5% of our total revenue, maybe 10%.
And as you've expanded across the continental United States, what has that unlocked for you in terms of the types of advertisers you can go after and stuff like that?
As we've expanded across the country in our core product, that's less important. But in our newer AI-empowered newsletter products, it's super important because we can deliver those newsletters for, pennies a day in all these different cities. And one of those ads for $19 a day or whatever is a massive, the profit margin on that is huge. So by having self-serve advertising opportunities available in some of our smaller markets, tier 3, tier 4, really smaller U.S. markets where we're operating now, self-serve takes all the human out of it for the most part. We have final editorial check on anything paid that publishes, but like if otherwise, like, and we're not reporting a lot of analytics back or automated analytics back, like all that stuff really allows us to go be in a lot of net new markets with a highly profitable automated product.
But I mean, even for like your sales staff, like your like what are they able to go after bigger clients now that you're in a lot of different markets, or national campaigns, or like what is that? How's that changed?
Yeah, so it's really more on the fulfillment side. Well, and both. So our sales staff were burdened by the fact that typically the lower the dollar spend of an advertiser, the more work it takes most of the time. Most of the time, that's because those advertisers have either less experience working with a type of product like ours, they are maybe less sophisticated, or they have smaller budgets and they care a lot more about everything. And so, as they should, but it requires a lot more time from the salesperson up front and from the revenue fulfillment team after the sale to get all that stuff placed and report back, or there's a lot more issues. And so, before it might have been that 80% of the revenue was below a certain threshold, and now 80% of the revenue is above a certain threshold when we were able to take that out. But that gave the sales and revenue fulfillment teams a ton more time back, because they're not instead of processing 3,000 contracts, they're processing 1,500 contracts, and they're at higher AOV. So it's changed the game materially so that our team can focus on the higher dollar opportunities that are typically more sustainable, longer lasting, renew all the time. We can give white glove service to those folks, and we still have a great product that works for the smaller businesses that have some tighter budgets, where they can still engage, and we're able to reduce those prices down further, so it's a lot easier for them to participate.
How much are you going after the national advertisers? Making the argument, yeah, we're a local news company, but we're spread out so far that you can hit a huge portion of the United States by advertising with us.
About 10% of our sales staff touches that, and that's probably about the same way that it pans out through the newsletter from a utilization perspective. Most of our advertisers are regional. Local or regional, and then a smaller percentage is like 10-15% maybe on the national side, and that is because the local readership would also revolt if you just had strictly all national potentially. And so how do you make it so that your product, you have to price everything right so that you can get enough local in there. You can put the prices a little bit higher for national too, so that it limits the amount of folks that are participating, so you get good high quality products all the time. But yeah, we have a good ad edit ratio, like in just advertising content versus editorial, and then in our advertising content, the split between local, regional, and national. And even our regional and national, the content that's fulfilled, our team does such a good job making it localized. So you might have a here.com ad that you would see in Morning Brew might read one way, where it's a little bit more of a national approach, but in our product it might be hyper localized to a specific community.
Well, how much are you responsible for the creative versus what the advertiser is responsible for?
We are on a local and regional. We are white glove, full service. We do all of the creative for them. On national, that sometimes dials back a little bit because they have certain prescribed approaches that they like to take. But 99% of the time, when we're allowed to editorialize what they provide, the performance is better. So, a lot of folks think that they know the right way to reach certain audiences, which is fine. However, we know the right way to reach readers within our own product. And so if we were able to play with the copy that's provided, we can almost guarantee better performance. And our team does incredibly good with that.
But if they're doing self-service, they're responsible for their own copy?
Yeah, all that. Now, if they want to, they can engage a salesperson and get a higher level. Like, it's there because it's easy, and a lot of people like it. But we also can still take care of all those people with direct sales support.
And how is your company structured, like in terms of people who are locally on the ground versus what's centralized?
We have editorial and sales is local in most instances in all the core markets, and then everything else is centralized. And that allows us to have your marketing, growth marketing, graphic design, all your creatives, all of our revenue fulfillment team, any other editorial leadership or senior leadership in the company is really, they used to all be very much in South Carolina because that's where we started. But now as we've grown, our staff is all over the country and very decentralized, and which is fine. I mean, it works great. We kind of were we were a Zoom company before COVID came around because we were so dispersed. And that's really allowed us to kind of pick up talent and operate anywhere with the right people that fit the bus.
Mm-hmm. And about how many people do you employ now?
Right now we're around the mid 70s.
Okay, so still relatively small, even for something that has like that high of a footprint, like in terms of audience and stuff like that. So let's talk about the AI part. So walk me through, like you're saying that you're like literally producing these newsletters like pennies on the dollar. When did you start launching those products, and like what kind of markets are you moving into, stuff like that?
So earlier this year, we acquired a company called Good Daily that was run by a guy named Matthew Henderson. Matthew Henderson has since come on and joined our company as our VP of engineering. And he is like a guru in all things deliverability, newsletters, content, but is a developer at his core. And so he had built this ecosystem of newsletters that was all automated in its nature, including fulfillment and all the pieces. But at a certain point, the advertiser demand and things started to grow and grow and grow, and handling all those micro conversations that are just the other operational stuff of running a media company became a lot. And so we saw a great alignment where 6am could bring all of its resources, experience from an editorial background, our experience from sales and sales team and revenue fulfillment, and apply that to the tech. And we married the two businesses together around July timeframe, and have really been putting our foot on the gas since then, and now passing our editorial brand standards into that product that we acquired, and really refining the way that we're able to build content at scale every single day in a lot of these smaller U.S. markets. And we've also been forging a lot of strategic content relationships. We are getting ready starting over the beginning of November, we'll be announcing numerous direct content partnerships with other large entities in the U.S. That help us to have great hyperlocal content that allows us to lean into, leverage AI to lean into their content through our distribution vehicle to reach a lot more markets. And what that means is a lot of people think about AI as this generative engine, like, hey, we're going to go write newsletters and these different cities, and it's going to like just start writing some long form lead story and like just make up all this crap about the community. And if you told it to go do that, to write you a whole newsletter every day, you would get a whole bunch of false, incorrect, hallucinated information. Well, when we use generative AI, it's really like extractive generative. So it's like taking content that already exists and compressing it down and more into summarization instead of trying to take the AI and expand it. Because when you expand, you hallucinate. When you take content from sources and you package it down, it stays typically factually accurate 99% of the time. It looks really good. And by the way that we're operating, it's more like news notes from a community. It is leaning on non-news sources. It is leaning on direct content partnerships, where we have more than enough information to populate a newsletter in any city every day. And that's like our foundation, and also provides information that we can use for any of our cities, where we can empower our editors to have a better summary in the morning. Hey, Danielle, good morning. Here's all the news that we found in your community this morning. Same stuff that we would publish in the automated ones, we feed to our core. And so that opportunity to produce content in these smaller markets is teaching us a lot about how we can support our core business, and you get them up and running. And for us, it's like a three-pronged approach. You start to build an audience in a market, you start to build revenue in a market, you've leveraged the tech to become credible in the market, and then once you hit a certain revenue threshold, we go from a seed market to core. And we add the editorial staff and the sales staff, and then it can scale. Because the seed market can only generate so much revenue. You're only going to make so much money on an automated product. We want to operate core markets. And so how do we take this thing that started, get it to a healthy point so it can operate profitably through its growth journey, and then you add the editorial staff. And then you have a sustainable local media platform at all evolutions of its growth, and you're not having to burn a ton of capital on the front end, where it's more risky and risks and compromises the rest of the business because you're throwing the dollars out the door until the revenue can catch up.
So what's a market you can move into now that you couldn't move in before because it was too capital intensive to start up?
All. So we're really looking at all markets in the U.S. that have more than 20,000 people.
Okay. Like any town over 20,000 or county or whatever.
Correct. And so that also lets us go around even the markets that we're in now, where you can be in the city center, but you have all these suburban communities that can also be supported. And then you can take your core content and pass it out to those too. So you might be in Greenville, the city of Greenville, South Carolina, but now we can pass that to all these like surrounding communities. So the editorial work gets extended reach, but the opportunity says that you can go into a market that's smaller that maybe couldn't support an editor like full time, and you can actually still deliver that community relevant news and information where they might not be able to have it otherwise. They might be considered a news desert and not have any news source. But we're able to pull from so many sources in the community, leveraging technology, that we can deliver them a value product, let it get to a certain threshold where it's self-sustaining, and then we can come in and add some additional revenue capacity to it over time. But it de-risks the expansion, and allows us to go faster into net new markets. It lets us learn a lot, and it lets us deliver value back to our core also. And that's super valuable and important because a lot of the processes and things behind the scenes that allow us to do research and to produce content and to take first draft passes at things and to edit and all that stuff, all that tech is being built out. That also helps the core, so that those folks who are producing our premium product in fewer cities, they're able to really flex their creative muscle and be the star of the show there versus doing monotonous work.
So let's take a hypothetical, like Midlothian, which is a suburb of Richmond.
Yep.
You launch a newsletter in there. Is it a daily newsletter?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how are people in Midlothian, especially since it's not human, like how are they finding it? Are you doing like a Facebook acquisition there? Like how do the Midlothians find that newsletter?
We have to do the similar audience development tactics. We also have the ability to do a lot of cross marketing with our own products, which we found works really well. We know a lot about our consumers, so the geographic expansion that's regionally proximate to our existing cities becomes relatively easy. I know that in Richmond, I already have a subset of people in that community, and so you can pop out. It's kind of like if Axios Local had a national presence, they can drop down into a community quicker because they already have people in those communities consuming their other products. Similar type approach where you can lean on your existing infrastructure of subscribers to help go faster. We know what the lookalike audiences are. We know how to go target market them faster. The acquisition cost is actually typically lower in those cities than it is in some of the larger markets, because we know exactly who the people are and there's less competition just from an advertising perspective. So we're able to get in and acquire subscribers at a much lower cost.
So you're actually running like ads across all those 400 markets to try to help them acquire initial newsletter subscribers?
Not all at the same time, no. We kind of right now it's a lot of it's organic, but we're starting to step into the different ones, but we're sticking close to our core markets for right now.
Mm-hmm. And you're saying that because you have an email list for Richmond, you're somehow that makes it easier to get people onto that Midlothian thing?
Yeah, so there's 60,000 people in Richmond to that newsletter. Probably 5,000 of them live in the other community already, and so we cross promote and get people to pick up and subscribe to the other newsletters
by carrying stories from it and linking to it from the main newsletter, or what?
Yeah, or telling them directly that it exists in the newsletter. Like, hey, we just launched in city X, Y, and Z. Click here to subscribe. And that seems to work really well for us. It's worked well historically, and it's continuing to work well to convert people to the nearby markets.
So that daily newsletter in Midlothian, what are hypothetical sources it's pulling from for that newsletter on a daily basis?
So typically, so a lot of people think about pulling sources just from your news outlets, but maybe that community only has one news outlet or no news outlets. We're leveraging all other content sources in a community. So your city pages, your visitors got bureaus, your small businesses, your large employers, your nonprofits, like everyone in the community is a content creator now. And as all these platforms carry their own content, they all want their content. Most of them would pay for their content to be discovered and shared. And so we're able to go in and establish ways to capture content from all of them, parse it back faster than our humans would be able to even pull it together, and then position it in a news note type format that gives value to the consumer and then passes them back to the native sources within their community.
So when you say content, do you mean like social media content?
Social's harder and less reliable, so we try to go to fact-based content. So new restaurant opens in town. They have a new website. We can surface the fact that they have a new website, that they have articles on that website that they're sharing. It's also probably being shared on the local economic development pages and on the city pages. And there's lots of sources that can validate that there's content existing in a market. And as it does that, you can determine that that's a valuable, valid piece of content for that community that can then be surfaced.
And before that newsletter goes out, is there a human looking at it, or is it just going out at 6 p.m. every day?
So all the AI product is entirely AI. So it has its own AI editors that go through and validate all that content. But again, because we're contracting the content, it increases your accuracy. There's nothing that's being extrapolated in the content creation, so there's no real material generative elements, and that ensures that the numbers are right, the names are right, the content is right, the dates are right, and so long as the content is accurate, the sources are accurate, and we have another process that validates sources. Assuming all those things are true, then it gets through a scoring threshold that allows it to be actually published.
And how are you monetizing that Midlothian newsletter? Like, is that completely self-service, or are your salespeople trying to, even if there are only 5,000 people on it, are they trying to sell stuff into it?
No, right now it's all self-service. But ultimately, you'll expand a large enough demographics and audience in these smaller cities that are around some of our bigger markets that would create future state sales opportunities.
And so how big would that Midlothian, and again, we're just using this as a hypothetical, you might not even know anything about this county, but I think it's in like Chesterfield or something, like the name of the county is Chesterfield or whatever. How big would the list need to get before you're like, okay, it's time to put an actual human editor at the head of this thing?
I would say it depends. The way that I kind of think that we would think about it is, can the newsletter sustain the cost of an editor? So if the editor in that market would cost, let's just be real simple here, $60,000 a year, then once the thing hits about $5,000 a month in revenue, then theoretically it can justify, that's the time to go start hiring, because the revenue theoretically would continue to increase. It can go support a full-time editor. And so long, like the way that we operate, we don't do anything now in the business unless it pays for itself. So if the product hits the revenue milestone, that's more important than the number of subscribers that it has or anything else. Like if the revenue is there to support it, which in some markets you might have 5,000 subscribers in one market and it's doing $10,000 a month in revenue. In another market, you might have 20,000 subscribers and it's doing $2,000 a month in revenue. It's more about the revenue number than it is about the size of the audience. And that just might be that who the advertisers are in that community, or the people that happen to be bought in, or somebody comes to us, which just happens all the time. Can you come launch in our city? Our business will pay to X for y'all to be here as a primary sponsor in the community. And we're coming up with some cool new ways for people to kind of become relevant in the leadership of these things existing in their communities.
And I know that it's only relatively recently that you've acquired this company, but have you had any automated newsletters that have reached the threshold for you to hire an editor in them yet?
Not well. I just, full transparency, we haven't evaluated it yet to say that they're there. I mean, yes, some of them are doing well. The ones that he had started initially earlier on, I would say most of them are not yet there in their journey. Our core focus right now is making sure that those products are in line with our brand standards, producing quality content that we can stand behind and feel good about monetizing, going through a full brand refresh. All of those newsletters are going to come out of the ground in November, looking very more closely like our core product. As that happens and we lean in more on the monetization and the self-serve stuff, we had a lot of infrastructure stuff to do on the back end. As all that comes out, that allows kind of the next chapter for us, and then hopefully we can start to push those up quicker. And I think that we're there, but we want to see some of them get to the next milestone.
So when you're looking ahead, like 5, even 10 years from now, I usually ask this question about like 3 years from now, but like it seems like you're like really trying to scale this, nationwide. What do you think your company looks like in terms of how many of these newsletters are now generating enough to have humans, like different stuff like that?
I would like to think it's a massive staff in a lot of cities. It's hard to know how it will evolve, and also how just the media ecosystem will evolve. Because right now, as we see that we expand faster with putting editorial staff in these cities because the revenue grows, because other things might come into play, like the ability to produce more like audio and video content that we can distribute across multi-platform, because we have a core body of work. And that allows us to put content out in more different ways that can be monetized, and the revenue threshold gets higher. And so I think there's going to be some real evolution there. We also are seeing that a lot of like local TV is evolving in a material way. Linear TV is devolving. And you're going to start to see the morning and evening news potentially go away. And those folks and a lot of these companies are leaning into, how do you take your anchors and turn them into creators and make them part of the creator economy? And so like, how does all that shake out and play, and how does that impact us in the long run? Does it free up additional advertising dollars that allow us to grow faster in these markets because our reach is bigger than some of the legacy brands? I mean, those things would help to advance the conversation and the opportunity. But I see us having a pretty material footprint and and play a pretty important role in the local media ecosystem. We probably won't solve for the the gaps that exist in the investigative journalism side. That's not our area of expertise by any means, and I think that has a lot of opportunity to be supported in other ways. But hey, maybe we'll have our own a different secondary publication in these markets that helps to support and amplify those things down the road. Don't know, but
I mean, I guess that's what my question is like, could you, let's say it's like, a city like Richmond or something like that, and you're like, okay, we've kind of taken this business as far as we can with one editor. What does it look like 5 editors or 5 journalists or something like that, and like actually doing kind of more beat-based coverage and stuff like that? Is that not like attractive to you at all?
No, I would say it's very attractive to us. I think it's hard for people to grasp that kind of concept right now. It's kind of crazy that you're asking about it, because the reality is all the legacy platforms are so burdened by the structure that they've created historically that they can't right size the ship. Whereas we actually can right size the ship and start off in a profitable capacity. And as you can scale up the revenue, you can add additional resources. And so, but maybe what we're adding is not necessarily a beat reporter, but a video or a video reporter or something else.
Or local video podcast where you're interviewing local people.
Correct. Yeah. So and just watching the evolution so much, I think that it will continue to be interesting about like who is on your team in a market in the future, where you can do a lot more. Maybe you have statewide people that cover, city government or something, and there's a way that they're able to capture all of the meeting minutes in a more automated way that lets them shuffle to, I don't know, we got to think efficiently on how you scale back to maybe reimagine the future, the newsroom 2.0. What does it look like down the road? And I think that we are delivering a highly scalable, profitable base that's a foundation for maybe the future. And whether that's by ourselves or with other people or in partnership with people or however that looks, I think it's more about positioning ourselves right now to have the reach, the trust, the credibility, and profitable operation that sets us up to be part of that conversation.
Yeah, so what you're kind of saying is you use that word foundation or the scaffolding, you're still in the 1.0 stage of building this company, of building that first profitable layer, and then once you built that profitable layer, you can start digging roots deeper into the soil, basically. I know I'm using mixed metaphors here.
Yeah, for sure. You have to start somewhere, and I think it's so hard for the other legacy media entities it's like they're steering the Titanic. It's so hard to get everybody on board or do something, and if you start nimble and super efficient and really optimize for profitability, and then you build around that, you de-risk a lot of things, and then also making sure you're not the one thing that's cool about newsletters in the space is that we're also creating bodies of work and data sets that are essentially infinitely scalable to any platform. So we're not bound to one thing or another. We can continue to move wherever we need to. We could be an app, we could be a social channel, we could be a LinkedIn thing, or whatever's next that doesn't exist yet. So so long as you can curate information effectively, you can package it effectively, then you can take that and distribute it wherever it needs to go. And so we want to play in that space and do it on a local level. And we definitely picked a hard industry. Media is hard. Local media is really hard. The ad-supported model is hard. And I think we're doing a pretty good job with where we're at today and looking forward to what we can do next.
It's funny how much your thesis kind of aligns with the original thesis for Patch that Tim Armstrong had, except his way of approaching it was to hire 800 separate reporters with which obviously is a huge amount of overhead to go with, versus yours is kind of the opposite, as you started with one city and just just grew outwards. I don't know if you've followed Tap Into. They've also been smart about growing from town to town to town and finding stakeholders in each of those towns, and just kind of, they've they've spread a different way than you have, but kind of that same thesis of you have to scale in a sustainable way, or else you're just going to burn through capital.
Yeah, I think there's some other folks that have gone the patch route that we might see go the patch route. That are even in the market now today, where they just have super high operating costs and clearly not the revenue to support it. And that there are certain folks that have the capital to do that and play that game for a while, but it's hard. I mean, it's really, really hard. And so, we've made a lot of wrong choices along the way. And we have expanded too quickly. We've had to contract our staff at times. I mean, it's hard. However, I think we're at a point now where, we achieved this profitability point, and we kind of know that we're not going to make some of those mistakes again when try to grow fast. Spend capital to grow faster. We're going to grow out of profits. We're going to grow in a smart and responsible manner that allows us to be more in control of the destiny.
Okay, Ryan, those are all the questions I have for you. Where can people find you online?
6amcity.com is the best jump off. You can find us there. Me personally, Ryan Heafy, on LinkedIn is the best place to catch me. Would love for folks to subscribe, check out the newsletters, all that, 6amcity.com.
Awesome. Well, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Appreciate it. Next time.